All right, everyone, even Politico now is beginning to worry as the 2020 election draws closer and closer by the hour because Trump has been making steady progress among Hispanic voters. And this is something that I said would probably happen. It's not about getting 100% of a voting bloc or even like 51%. It's about cobbling together 51% of the population. The fact is that Trump's support right now is pretty damn good, considering the fact that for 2 years it's been nothing but nonstop propaganda saying that he's everything bad under the sun, and all of these literally fake scandals over and over again plaguing him temporarily. It's like the Mueller report is not going to indict him. So what happens now? That one person that worked as a chairwoman or something claims that he kissed her without her consent, and it probably never happened because 2 witnesses that she names that were in the room say it didn't happen. It's like, so what the fuck do you expect me to believe? And then people tried to put out a hit piece on Pam Bondi. It's like, it doesn't matter if she's reliable. She was named as a witness, and she says that it didn't happen. She was named by the person who's making the accusation. Apparently, she thought, well, Bondi will back me up on this, but it never happened. I think she expected Bondi to throw Trump under the bus, is what I think. No, I don't believe it at all. You got no corroboration. There's literally no evidence whatsoever in the case, so fucking shut up about it. Politico now. Keep in mind, Politico is one of the most anti-Trump publications in this world. It's up there. It's beyond the Wall Street Journal. It's beyond the New York Times. Even they occasionally will say something that makes sense. This is more like on the level of Vox or Gawk, anything from like Gawker Media's circle. This is like Vox or HuffPost or something like that. Salon maybe. That's where they're coming from. Politico, part of the mollusk media, by the way. They're not legacy media in the cable news or newsprint sense. They're legacy media and they have a website and no other major presence thing, and rely upon social media that they have very little direct impact on. That's where people spread their articles around. It's been a while since I got more than a couple of Politico articles in a year. It used to be more important. I think their readership must be way down. But they're saying, oh yeah, more and more Hispanics are jumping aboard the Trump train, and if Democrats don't stop him from, if Democrats don't stop the fact that people really just want to be left alone, they want jobs, and they don't want an open border, it's like an enigma to them, then Democrats will lose. Well, yeah, they probably will. Trump needs to get like 2 or 3 more points of the Hispanic vote, and he'll blow it out of the water. He'll manage to retake Nevada for the Republicans. Probably takes New Mexico at some point. Look, if Elizabeth Warren is your candidate, between him doing better with that particular group, because Hispanics, I think, are tired at this point of being constantly compared to illegal immigrants. I think they're tired of the Democrat plantation sort of mentality. I think it almost becomes just a pride thing at that point. That and taxes, I would say, is the other big thing. Jobs. Between that and maybe Elizabeth Warren pissing off every Native American voter in the country, they'd lose New Mexico. They'd lose Nevada. They wouldn't be doing too hot. They might have problems in other parts of the country as well. You could see states that have been fairly blue for some time go red. I mean, it's not beyond the realm of possibility. Look, in 2016 it happened in Michigan. Michigan had gone Democrat for 5 cycles, I think. Pennsylvania, I think, for 5. I think Wisconsin had gone blue for like 7 cycles, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since any of those states went for the Republicans, and he flipped them all. It looks like Virginia may very well flip. I would not be surprised if Trump wins Virginia the next time around. Look, if he wins Virginia, those extra votes mean he can lose Michigan and Wisconsin and still win the election by a fairly safe margin. And again, if he flips Nevada, well, then it's basically all over. If he flips Virginia and Nevada, it's over. He can lose Florida at that point. It wouldn't even matter. And of course, it's a possibility. Florida was on a knife's edge anyway. You gotta do a little bit more clanking. Some people are starting to miss that. I just put the spoon in the cup, and if it happens to clank, it clanks. Politico's getting worried, and the Democrats would be right to listen to this. Some of them are like, they take it for granted that demographics are always going to be the same as they have been in the post-70s paradigm. Like the post-Reagan-Clinton era, like the map will always look like this. These are the states that are ours, these are the states that are theirs, and these ones are the swing states. This group of people votes for us heavily, that group votes for them heavily. This religion votes Republican, that religion votes Democrat. This age bracket's more liberal, that one's more conservative. That can change in a single election. Again, we've already seen the beginning of the paradigm shift. Generally speaking, right now, the southwestern states are becoming more blue. The Rust Belt states are becoming more red. Parts of the Mid-Atlantic becoming more blue, but then parts of New England are showing signs of reddening, like New Hampshire barely went Clinton. Maine looked like it was in play for a while there. Even in Vermont, because of Bernie Sanders getting stabbed in the back. Look, this state didn't go for Clinton by nearly the same margin it went for Obama, even in his re-election, where he got a lot fewer votes than the first time around. Things are beginning to change in this country. Racial demographics with regards to voting are not immune to that. There was a time not that many decades ago, within the lifetime of some people alive today, for example, Vermont up until the late 80s was solidly red. It was a solidly Republican state. A bunch of people who got second homes here settled into the state and turned it blue. A bunch of hippies moved in. In the most literal sense, there was like a back-to-the-earth communal movement of tens of thousands of hippies that then bred out of control and took over the state. That's really what we've got now. Like the children of Vermont, like in my demographic, are the result of a bunch of flower child offspring. That's why Vermont's screwed up. It's why Bernie Sanders was able to win. And a bunch of hippie trippy stuff. Meanwhile, there are parts of the country that have gone heavily red that were like blue. Like West Virginia at one point was kind of in play as a state. Now it's deeply, deeply red. It's gone totally off the deep end for the Republicans. It's more like, the Mid-Atlantic version of Wyoming at this point. Part of that is the opiate crisis, I think. That's why Trump is doing well there. And the opiate crisis really is a big thing in this election, too. You haven't heard as much about it, but you can expect him to make more about it, especially if he doesn't get more wall funding. Like, if he's still locked in a court battle prior to the 2020 election, you've got to understand he's going to drum up the war on opiates, really, and say, look, this is destroying our country. Part of it's the result of the porous border. People who overstay their visas may become illegally here, but they're not bringing in drugs. No, that's coming across the border, says Trump, or through a port, which is why, when they say fuck DHS, like Rashida Tlaib, was it Rashida Tlaib, or was it Elon Omar that said basically fuck the DHS? I can't remember. You do realize they administer the Coast Guard, madam, now don't you? No, of course you don't, because you're dumb. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a socialistic Democrat. Bunch of morons. Again, the Democrats are on the brink of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Trump is not a very well-liked president. His approval is mediocre. Admittedly, it's mediocre. He's been stymied on the wall, one of his main campaign promises. And yet, when I look at the Dem field, it's just a bunch of extreme far leftists. There's nobody else in the race at the moment, and Biden's not going to be able to save them. I don't care if the Democrats approve of him. That's a dog whistle to every Republican in the country. You better turn out, because it's back to the Obama years if you don't. I guarantee Trump will drum that up. And if he's doing better with the Hispanic demographic, part of it really is about lowering unemployment and bringing jobs back. I'm going to put myself in another person's shoes. Let's say, alternate universe, Styx Hexenhammer is was born, is from a family from Mexico. Like, I'm a second-generation immigrant. Family moved here legally. They did what they were supposed to do. I was born in the fucking U.S. I'm an American. I have no ties to Mexico. I might never have even visited Mexico. I might not even speak Spanish fluently, although probably at home I know the lingo. I speak English. I consider myself a Texan or a Californian before I do, like, a fucking Mexican anything, because I've never even seen my so-called homeland. My homeland's the United States. The Democrats keep telling me, oh, you poor Hispanic, these people hate you, we need to keep the border open. And I'm like, why? Why would I want to see that? I'm not anything to do with these countries. These second and third generation immigrants, look, I've seen the tabulations and the charts. As you go further down the line from the point of origin, people become more conservative, to the point where the fourth generation is I believe, majority conservative among families of, more recent immigrants, as opposed to people, their family came here in the 1600s or something before the U.S. existed, like mine did. So you got first-generation immigrants, like, fairly liberal, and that's partially because they come here needing a safety net of some sort, because usually there's going to be economic problems. The next generation of immigrants, after their parents have worked hard to try hard, do what they need to do, they're a little less liberal. The third generation's like 50-50, I think. And now you do realize that the main surge of immigration was some time ago with a lot of these families. And then, when you have, 5 or 6 kids sometimes in that second generation, then in turn having 3 or 4 kids in the subsequent, that's a hell of a lot of voters. And they're not getting more liberal. The Democrats need to realize that the progress is not unidirectional, number one. Number two, any sane person looks at their policies, doesn't see progress at all anyway. I don't see progress in liberal policies. I see a regression towards the mid-1800s sort of ideology of hefty interventionism and like government is your friend and we need to moralism and stupid shit like that. That's what I see in the Democratic plantation right now. And if I were any other race, I'd probably, I still wouldn't be voting for these morons. They want to bring socialism. What if your family comes from a country, you know, you're Hispanic, you're like, your family came over from Venezuela 2 generations ago, and you're looking, oh, my happy homeland is collapsing because of socialism. Bernie Sanders right now, as a self-proclaimed socialist who loves Maduro, is shitting bricks. He's like, oh shit, I'm the front runner. The state that I've based, you know, the last 10 years on trying to campaign in favor of having that kind of policies might collapse tomorrow. Oh, that's not going to be very good for my approval polling. It might leave. Perfect scenario would be Sanders ends up getting fucked because Venezuela collapses. And I'm not saying I want Venezuelans to suffer. I just want them to stabilize. Yeah, Guaido's like, whatever. So Venezuela collapses. Sanders' campaign collapses. Elizabeth Warren ends up becoming the nominee. In which case the Democrats, again, they probably lose New Mexico, they lose control of Nevada, they get wiped out. All of the gains they made in the Southwest are reversed. Minnesota probably at that point goes red. Virginia almost certainly flips. You might see Oregon or Washington State, certainly Maine or New Hampshire. It would be a landslide victory for Trump. The Democrats would lose the House, and all would be well for a while. It'd be pretty funny. I hope something like that happens just to punish him. Look, give me a Democratic Party worth voting for. Instead of a Democratic Party, it's like, oh, here's our pie-in-the-sky plan that we would need to double your fucking taxes for. Here's our bullshit that's been modeled on literally socialist nations. Here's 10 paragraphs about stopping cow farts. Yeah, we want to eliminate air travel and personal vehicles. That's a good idea. We need to save the world, otherwise in 12 years we'll all die or something. Bunch of morons. That's about all. Peace out.